Hi everyone, welcome to my channel and welcome back. I'm Jeannie and we're going to do a really fun 3D fruit nail set. Fruit nails are probably my favorite nail sets to do in the summertime, but we're going to take it up a notch and we're going to use flash reflective glitters to make this pop and be extra blingy. So I'm going to be using the Rosy Hip Ultra Flash collection. This is from Sweetie Nail Supply. They did send me this collection as PR, but as always, you will always get my honest opinions on this channel. So let's go ahead and break into the collection. I'll show it off to you a little bit. We'll do some swatching and then we'll get into the nail set. I'll try to remember to leave chapters as well in case you want to skip around. And I will also say if you do want to do any shopping from Sweetie Nail Supply, I do have an affiliate code, so please consider using code Genie10 to save 10% off your orders and support me in this channel. But anyway, getting back into the collection, I love that when you buy like Korean gel collections, they come with a swatch card. So this one is no different. And the Rosy Hip bottles, they are always so gorgeous. This is, I think, my third collection from Rosy Hip, and I've always been so impressed. But the beautiful bottles with like that ombre, and then just looking at these glitters, even without the flash, these glitters are so beautiful. So I just wanted to take a look at one more, just to kind of take a peek at like what the consistency is like, how they look, because this is my first time seeing them. So they're a little bit of a thicker consistency, but I wouldn't say super thick. But I'm going to go ahead, switch to music, let you watch the swatching. And then after I'm done with the swatching, then I'll hop back on. We'll do this fun nail set together. So here are all 12 colors all swatched out. I did end up doing 2 total layers of the polish just to get more of that color payoff, because as you saw in the swatching, it is a little bit sheer in one layer, but I love that it's buildable. But for the really fun part, this is dim lighting with the flash directly on it. Just look at that sparkle of those reflective glitters. I can't get enough of them. They are just so beautiful, like twinkling in that flash. But we're going to go ahead, jump right into this set. So I went ahead and sized out my tips and got them ready. So here they are on my nail stand. These nail stands I do get from the Cat Prints. I'll leave them linked down below in the description. And the tips I'm using are the medium almond soft gel tips from Sweetie Nail Supply. These aren't available in the US, but if you're outside of the US, you can get these tips. And if you can get them, I do recommend them. I think they're really great tips. I like that they're thinner, so I can do like dip powder or gel on top without creating a lot of bulk. To save a little bit of time, I went ahead and applied my Doi Basics Gel Base Coat to all the tips, cured that for 60 seconds. So now we're going to start with my base color. If you've been around my channel, you know that the Doi Nudie Gels are my absolute favorite to use for bases. So of course I'm going to be using it again. Today I decided to use the blush pink. I really love this one with my skin tone because it's a little bit of a deeper pink. So it's not too light, it's not too dark. It's just like that perfect wash of color for me. And I love these gels because even though they're syrup gels and they're sheer, they never get streaky on me. And there's so many different varieties of colors that I have so much to choose from. So I'm slowly building up my nudie gel collection. Hopefully, at some point, I will have all of the colors. I have a pretty good collection. I mean, well, maybe not. Maybe about a dozen colors, probably less. But eventually, I do plan to collect all of them just because I love them so much. So I'm just showing you one layer here, but I do actually end up doing two total layers because I wanted to build up that opacity. So here's how it looks with the two layers. I'm also going to go ahead and apply a matte top coat to all these tips. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want the 3D fruit to really pop. So I'm going to keep the 3D fruit glossy, but anywhere where you see the base of the nail, the base color, it's going to be matte, which is going to really make that glossy pop instead of kind of taking away from it. So the matte top coat I'm using, this is the Divox Zero Matte Top Coat. It's my favorite matte top coat to use. It's really excellent for isolated chrome. I'm not going to be doing chrome in today's mani, but I love using this regardless of whether I'm doing chrome or not, just because it's such a great flat matte top coat. It truly is matte and I never have any streakiness. It levels quickly. So it's just a really easy matte top coat to use. So it's always what I grab for. So once I have that on all the nails, I'm going to go ahead and cure that for a full 60 seconds. And then we're going to get into my first nail. I'm going to be starting with RG14, which is a beautiful medium pink, and I'm just placing a little bit of that on my resin palette to make it easier to pick up because I will be using a liner brush to do the nail art. So starting with my thumb, I'm going to be doing like little mini strawberries throughout the thumbnail. So I'm just picking up some of that gel with my liner brush. And when I'm drawing strawberries, I start with like a triangle in mind. But obviously, strawberries don't have like those sharp angles. So I start with a triangle and then I round out the corners to kind of make that general strawberry shape. I'm going to do a handful of strawberries throughout the nail in all different directions. I don't want the nail to be too busy and jam packed, but I do want like an even distribution of strawberries throughout the nail. So if a spot looks too bare, I may add like a little strawberry. And the one thing I'll say is using the liner brush, it's even thinner than if you were to apply it with just a regular layer of gel polish using the brush in the bottle. So as I'm kind of applying it with the liner brush, I'm moving it around just so I can get an even distribution of that color and the glitter and that it's not like pooling up in one area of that strawberry. So a little bit of a watch area if you're using these gels for nail art, but I found that when like doing swatching or doing a full nail, I didn't have any issues with any of that thinness or pooling of the gels. And I think just because it's like a bigger concentration of that gel and that glitter using the brush in the bottle rather than using like a little bit of gel and a liner brush. After I finished with my first layer, I gave the nail a cure for a full 60 seconds, and now I'm going in with the second layer just to build up that opacity and get a little bit more of that pink color. Once I'm done with my second layer, I'll cure that for a full 60 seconds, and every strawberry needs like that leafy green top. So I'm going to be using a little bit of RG21, which is like this light sage green. I wish it was a little bit darker, but this is the only green that came in the set. So I'm just picking up some of that with my liner brush, and at the top of each strawberry, I'm just drawing like a little bit of like three different lines on top to be like that spiky kind of greenage on top of the strawberries. Once that's done, I'll cure that for a full 60 seconds as well. And then I decided I needed seeds for the strawberries. So this is the yogurt gel grocery black. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll leave it linked down below in the description. So I decided because these strawberries are so small, I'm just going to use an orange wood stick and draw like little seeds because I don't want them to be like dots. I want them to be like a little oval-ish, but in hindsight, I feel like this step made them look like ladybugs rather than strawberries. So I honestly feel like I wish I would have left out the seeds or done white seeds instead of black. Either way, it is what it is, but I'll say this wasn't my favorite nail. But regardless, we're going to keep moving on. And the last thing I'm going to do for this nail is make the strawberries 3D. So in order to get that 3D structure, I'm going to be using my Gin Bee Crazy Top Coat. This is the thick formula. I love using it for those 3D looks. But the one thing I'll say is it's really thick, but it will eventually self level. So you do have to move a little bit more quickly or flash cure in between. And after using this quite a few times now for 3D looks, the one major thing I learned is not to be afraid to do multiple layers. So if I do one layer and cure it and I want it a little bit more 3D, to just go ahead and add on top of it rather than trying to do too much in one layer because as you're adding more, it could level more. So it's just easier to do it in multiple layers if necessary. Moving on to my index finger, this is going to be my orange nail. So I'm using RG17. And initially, this wasn't going to be a full orange nail, which is why I had painted my base color on first. But I ended up deciding last minute to pivot and do the whole nail with RG17. Luckily, I didn't have a whole lot of bulk having that base underneath. So I'm going ahead, I'm applying 2 total layers of RG17 before we get into the nail art. I'm using some white gel and my liner brush, and I'm going to draw a thin line around the perimeter of my nail, but I'm not going to do at the edge of my nail. So I want to leave that outermost edge perimeter of my nail the orange because that's going to represent like the orange rind. But you know, if you take a cross section of the orange, you split it in half, you see like after the rind, there's like that white layer. So that's kind of what I'm trying to mimic. So as I'm going, if I need a little bit more gel, I'm going to dip my liner brush back into my white gel on my palette, pick up more and keep going. So that's why you see like the little segments I'm doing. And I also want to make sure that it's as straight as possible. So once I'm happy with like the perimeter that I've done, that I have enough opacity because I'm only going to do one layer because I was not breathing this entire time. I'm going to pick up more of that white gel and I'm going to draw the segments. And I want to make sure these lines are thin. So I'm starting with a line down the center of that perimeter that I drew vertically. So I'm drawing that line down vertically, and then I'm just going to go over it again to make sure I have enough opacity. And then down the center of that, I'm going to go horizontally. So starting with drawing that cross shape around the center of that nail. And then from there, I can draw the vertical lines from the center of that to make my segments. If the lines aren't perfectly straight or centered, it's not really a big deal because no orange is perfectly symmetrical anyway. I just want to make sure that my lines are as thin as I can get them so I have enough room to do everything I need to do. So I went ahead and drew a dot and made it a little bit wider at the center where all the lines meet. And then the last thing I want to do for the outline is the segments, they are more rounded on an orange. So anywhere where the lines meet that outer perimeter line, I'm just going to soften them up and kind of shade in to make the segments look a little bit more rounded. I went ahead and cured my outline for a full 60 seconds. And now for the 3D part, I want to make each individual orange slice 3D. So anywhere where there's orange in between the white segments is where I'm going to place a dollop of that crazy top coat. So I just want to be careful to make sure that I'm just staying inside those white lines. If I need to flash cure in between, I can, but I do want to move a little bit quicker so it doesn't level on me because I don't want them to bleed into each other. I really want those segments to be separated. And this is a good example of where I say don't be afraid to do multiple layers if you don't get the height you want for the 3D. I found that because these slices were all different sizes, some where I applied the crazy top coat were a really good height. They showed a lot of definition for that 3D, where others weren't as tall. So after I cured for a full 60 seconds, my first layer, after I finished all the slices, I actually decided for cut some of them where they weren't as tall. I added a second layer just to make them a little bit more even, and that I was happy with. Moving on to my middle nail, I'm going to be using RG24 for my grape nail. So this is going to be a different process than I used for my other nails, and it's definitely a trust the process because when I was doing this, I did question myself a couple times. So using RG24, I'm just trying at the free edge like three scallops, but they're all going to be like at different heights. So I just want to make sure that I've got an even layer of that. I'm going to cure that for a full 60 seconds. And then I wanted to build up the color a little bit more. So I'm going to go in with a second layer after that's cured and cure that for another 60 seconds. And then now comes the fun part of the 3D. So since these are going to be grapes, I'm taking the largest dotting tool I have and I'm picking up a large dollop of that crazy top coat. And then starting at that tallest scallop, I'm dotting on that top coat. And then once I have that on, I'm going to move my dotting tool in a circular motion, not only to build up that height of the dot. So that's going to be the individual grape. It's also going to make like that circle shape and it's going to break like that extra stringiness of the top coat. In between each of the dots, I'm going to use my flash cure lamp and flash cure it for a quick like 3 to 5 seconds off to the side. I want to be really careful with this because I'd be super sad if I accidentally cured my whole jar of my crazy top coat. So I'm doing it off to the side really quickly. And the reason why I'm doing this is one, because I want my individual grapes, my dots, to stay exactly where they are. And two, because I'm putting those dots next to each other to make like those individual grapes in a bunch. If I left them uncured and they touched each other, they would bleed into each other and become big blobs. But being able to flash cure them, even if the next dot, the next grape touches it, it's not going to bleed into each other. So it's going to keep like each individual distinct grapes, making that bunch of grapes, which I think is just super fun. Honestly, I think this is my favorite nail. My ring finger is going to be my lemon nail using RG20, and it's going to be the same process that I did for my index finger, which was my orange nail. Only for my orange nail, I did the entire nail. For the lemon nail, I'm only going to do half the nail, but it's the same process. So I'm just going to go ahead and let you watch this. My last nail is going to be my blueberry nail using RG23, and it's going to be a similar process to how I did the grape nail on my middle finger. Although for the blueberries, it's only going to be one small bunch, like three blueberries together, and then a couple of singles throughout the nail instead of like a larger bunch like I did for the grapes. So I'm just taking that large dotting tool that I used for making the 3D grapes, and I'm just dipping that into RG23, and then I'm doing this little bunch right here. So it's three blueberries together. Their colors are all going to bleed together, but that's okay because I'll make the individual blueberries with the top coat like I did for the grapes. After that, I'm going to do some individual blueberries throughout the nail. So I'm taking that dotting tool, dipping that into the blue, and just doing like larger dots kind of throughout the nail. I don't want to make this nail too cluttered. I just want to put a couple extra blueberries just for that little bit extra pop of color. So once I've got those, I'm going to cure that for a full 60 seconds. And then I wanted to add a little bit of more dimension to the blueberries. So at the blueberries where they normally meet the vine, you see like that little bit of darker color. So I've got a little bit of a darker blue. I'm using my orange wood stick. And then at the top of that blueberry, I'm just adding like a little bit of that blue just to shade in to show that little bit of darker color. I don't want it too much, and it's just going to be in the blueberry. I just wanted that little element of detail to add. One last final step that I'm going to do that probably isn't completely necessary, but I wanted to do is I'm taking my Doi Basics gel top coat, and anywhere where I have some nail art, but it isn't covered with the Jinbei top coat, I'm going to go ahead and top coat it using my liner brush. The Jinbei Crazy top coat, it is a no wipe, so I don't need to do anything on top of that. But anywhere where there's gel art, but not a top coat, so the vine of the grape, that green vine, or like the segments, the white part of the orange and the lemon, those are still tacky from that gel polish. So I wanted to go ahead and top coat them. I could have just wiped off that tacky layer with some isopropyl alcohol and a lint-free wipe, but they wouldn't look as glossy. It would kind of take away the shine, and I really wanted the nail art parts to be shiny, which is why I decided to top coat them. The one thing I want to make sure I mention if you do decide to do this step is make sure you're using a thin top coat because you don't want to lose the texture of your 3D. If you use a thicker top coat and you're like going in between the 3D elements, you could start losing some of that texture because it's going to start filling in some of that space. So that's why I really like the Doi Basic Gel top coat because it is a thinner consistency. I went ahead and applied my press-ons off camera, but if you want to see my entire end-to-end press-on process, I'll leave that video linked above in the cards. But of course, I'm going to finish off my mani by rehydrating my cuticles with my Scales of a Mermaid cuticle oil. And what better scent for this nail set than pasta fruit salad, please? This is the perfect fruity, summery scent. It's not too overpowering and it's super hydrating. I do also have an affiliate code with Scales of a Mermaid. So if you do any shopping, you can use code Genie10 to save 10% off your orders. So that pretty much wraps up today's video, and I'm so happy with the way this set turned out. As I kind of mentioned before, the thumb is my least favorite because they kind of look like ladybugs rather than strawberries. But overall, I'm so happy with this set. I think they look super cute in natural lighting, but the flash lighting, oh my goodness, that's when they really pop. Sometimes with some flash reflective glitters, they just look all right with regular lighting, but they really pop with the flash lighting. But I feel like for this collection, They look really great in regular lighting and they look extra great in the flash lighting. So I really love for these glitters that they look great no matter what lighting you have. So if you're still here, thank you for hanging out. Drop me some kind of fruit emoji down below in the comments so I know you stuck in there. So I hope this video is helpful and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue creating content like this, and it also helps YouTube recommend me to others, which helps grow my channel. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload content every Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.